When I was a kid, my dad used to take me to football matches. We were AFC Bournemouth fans, and Bournemouth were always a third or fourth division club. We spent our entire history sat down there, never going anywhere. We were never going to be a big club. In fact, most of our history we were battling against the administrators. I remember the days when we had people in the town square with buckets collecting coins to try and save the football club, to stop them going to administration again. And over the 20 years since I came back from the Middle East, I became a photographer, and I'd reached a position where I was the club photographer for my hometown. When I became the photographer, we were in League One. We were actually looking at relegation to League Two at the time. It was like quite desperate times. And then Eddie Howe, our manager, came back from Burnley, where he'd been for 18 months, and things started to turn around. We started improving. That season we missed out on promotion by a couple of points. The following season we got promoted to the Championship, which was the highest our club had ever been. We'd only been there once before, for one season under Harry Redknapp, and that was our club's greatest moment in history. So anyway, Eddie Howe got us promoted to the Championship, which was brilliant. And we thought, rah, yeah. 2 seasons later, the unspeakable has happened. We're sat there looking at potential promotion to the Premier League. It's like Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool. And we played Bolton at home, and we beat them, and we got promoted to the Premier League. And there's me, local, always been a fan of the club, stood on the pitch with the players, getting sprayed with champagne. The following Saturday, we went to Charlton, and as far as we were concerned, we were already in the Premier League. It was a party. And about 10 minutes from the end, this big cheer went up from the crowd as Watford let in a goal. And that meant that we were going to be Football League champions. And that was unbelievable. And my next hour and a half suddenly got very, very busy. But these were the 2 greatest days in the history of my football club. And yet I was terrified. I was terrified because I knew that during the summer, I was going to tell them something that could mean these were my last 2 ever football matches. My first ever memory of being transgender, I was about 7. We went on a family holiday. And as kids do, we got to play with the other kids. And all week I insisted these other kids call me Jenny. No idea why I picked Jenny. And then as at the end of the week, we're there with our parents, about to go home, and these kids said, "Bye, Jenny." And I went, they've been doing that all week, I really don't know why. And then when I was 11, Grease came out, and my mum got a pair of spandex trousers. And I so wanted to be Olivia Newton-John.
Don't we all?
But I had this was part of me all my life. When I was 16 years old, I joined the Air Force. I was 3rd generation Air Force. My dad was on Phantoms, my granddad was out in Burma. So I joined the Air Force at 16 years old. By the time I was 18, I was stationed in Norfolk on a tornado squadron. And one day, beautiful October day, there was this explosion. And I heard it and ran to the source of the explosion. And there was a 19-year-old guy who'd lost his arm in an explosion. And I was the first person there, and I put a tourniquet on it and saved his life. The Air Force, in their infinite wisdom, immediately packed me off to Germany. They removed me from the source of my grief, but at the same time removed me from my source of support. So I moved to Germany, where people knew nothing about what I'd been through. And during that period, I started self-harming. I was drinking too much, and I'd carry a razor blade around in my wallet. And when I was out around the town with the guys, I'd go into the toilet to get a razor blade out and start cutting myself. Because I had all this massive emotional pain. Both from being transgender and not being able to do anything about it, but also post-traumatic stress after the incident there. And I never got any help. But the thing is, in life we all suffer trauma, whether it's losing a loved one, whether it's having a car accident, whether it's having something about yourself that you are not happy with. And all of this trauma leads to pain. And you internalise it and you keep it and you bottle it up. And that eventually leads to fear. And this fear can stop you doing things. Now, I've spent my whole life living in fear. Fear of people, fear of me coming to terms with being transgender, fear of what would happen when I told the rest of the world. A lot of people who feel fear can find ways of dealing with it. Some ways of dealing with it are good, and some people you find that have a lot of inner fear are actually very driven, very focused. I was very driven. I used to race motorbikes. I taught myself to play guitar and performed in bands. I launched a publishing company and we went from concept to print in 2 weeks on a magazine. And everyone that I knew that was already in the industry was saying, "You can't do that." I'm doing it. But it was all a way of diverting my attention from my pain. The thing is, there's other ways of dealing with pain, and they're not so healthy. Things like self-harming, things like drinking, and drugs, things like all sorts of ways that sort of people try and anaesthetise themselves to the pain that they're feeling. Anyway, I originally started to transition back in 2000, and then my wife got pregnant, and the plan was that our son would have 2 mums from the day he was born. But then when he was born, he had a massive fit on his first day and ended up with a disability. And I thought, I cannot put the family through coming to terms with this at the same time as we're coming to terms with what his issues are. So effectively what I did was I killed Sophie, put her in a box and buried her. She was gone. But over the next 15 years, all of that pain stayed there, and it stayed eating away at me. I put on 6 stone in weight because I was self-harming with food by this point. I was no longer carrying a blade around, and I didn't need to. I could hurt myself by eating too much. And every single day, I had this little voice in the back of my head that was just chipping away at my confidence. And I'd be driving down the road, perfectly thinking I was perfectly happy, and this little voice would just go, "Yeah, but if you just did that with the steering wheel and crashed the car, it would all be over, and then you wouldn't be in pain." And one of the problems is that sometimes pain is so far in the past, or you've repressed it so much, you can't actually remember what the pain is about. And that was where I was. I knew I was in pain, and I knew I had suicidal feelings, but I didn't necessarily know where they were coming from. Then in January I was up in a travel lodge in Bradford, of all places, for an epiphany. I think we'd just played Sheffield Wednesday, and I was loitering around because we were playing Leeds a couple of days later, and there's no point travelling all the way from there back to Bournemouth and back again. And all of a sudden this light bulb just went, and I went, "Oh my God, that is why you're so unhappy. That is why you hate yourself so much." And from that moment I started getting better. But what I discovered was that I still had the fear. I was still scared. I was still scared of what this would mean to my life. What it would mean to my job, what it would mean to my business, and what it would mean to my family. But I started changing things. And as I changed things, things started getting better, not worse. I discovered that I was happier than I'd ever been in my entire life. I got so happy that actually I didn't realise it was possible to be this happy. My old emotional state was somewhere around about here, and on a good day I'd be about there, and on a bad day, I'd be down feeling suicidal. Whereas now, my baseline's about here. And on a good day, I'm dancing with the unicorns. And on a bad day, I'm still not quite as bad as I used to be. But what I realised was that this fear and this fear of change was stopping me actually fulfilling my potential. And it does for so many people. Everyone's scared of something. Everyone's, whether it's losing a loved one, losing a partner, business issues. We're all scared of something. We all have fears that we may or may not address. But what I discovered was that once I started facing up to my fears and facing up to the change, there was good stuff on the other side of it. The thing about fear is that fear can expand to fill every available inch of space that you've got within your consciousness. It can take over. In your mind, everything has the potential to be the end of the world. In reality, very, very few things have got the potential to be the end of the world. We make it all so much worse than it possibly is. There's me. I was terrified that when I told the football club I would never work again. As it was, I told the football club. They booked me to go in on a Monday and take photos of a training session, and they booked me on the Friday before the Monday, and that day I had my hair extensions done. At which point I thought, I can't go back and pretend anymore, because I can't take my hair off. I can't just go back and pretend I'm still Steve. So it's fine, I've got to tell him. So I'm trying to get hold of the commercial director on Friday. He's out of the office. It's getting more and more time. Saturday tea time, I finally managed to get hold of him on his mobile at a family barbecue. And I said to him, Rob, I am so sorry to do this to you at a family barbecue, but it's something I've got to tell you now, before Monday. I went, what's that then? So I told him. And it went a bit quiet. He's like, oh God. And then sort of they got back to me and sort of, our training session on Monday's cancelled. It's like, okay, so at this point I'm fearing the worst. But then I think what happened was that they then had to go and have loads of meetings and do loads of talking and try and work out what the hell was going on. So they invited me in for a meeting at the football club. And at this meeting, which was in the owner's box overlooking the pitch, had the chairman of the football club, commercial director, HR manager, head of media, Eddie Howe, the manager of the first team, and Jason, his assistant. And me, wearing pencil skirt and heels. Looking fabulous. And it's like, we sat down and we had this talk. And my contract changed a little bit, but effectively I still had a job. And Eddie Howe said to me, is there anything we can do to make it easy for you? And I said to him, what I want to do is I need to actually meet the guys before a match day. I can't meet them for the first time just before a match. So we arranged for me to come in for a training session. And they called all the players together and we decided that banter was the way to do it. So Jason called all the guys in and said, well, actually before we met the guys, Eddie Howe said to me, are you scared? Are you nervous? And I went, you know what? I'm so comfortable in who I am and so comfortable with myself that, no, maybe a couple of really little butterflies, but nothing like the fear that I would have expected a couple of months ago. So I called all the guys together and Jason, the assistant manager, went, you may have noticed that our photographer's changed a bit since last season, lost a bit of weight. I went, yeah, I've grown my hair out a bit. I'd like you all to meet Sophie. And Tommy, our thick hat captain, ex-Brighton boy, started clapping. And then all the other guys started clapping. And the thing is, built this up in my head so much, it's like, that it almost felt like an anticlimax. I almost didn't enjoy the moment because I was expecting more. And then Tommy turned around and went, right, let's train. And that's it. Over. But after the training session, I sat down and I spoke with a couple of the guys because it was very important for me that I was open. And I have this policy of being 100% honest and open with everyone I meet. And there are never any stupid questions. And I told the guys about feeling suicidal. And I told the guys about all the years I've been in pain, because it was really important to me that they didn't think this was a whim. They needed to know that this was saving my life. And it was great. Then I also had to tell my family. And my family were brilliant. I knew that as soon as I sat inside of the football pitch, the whole world would know. It's quite public sitting on the side of the football pitch. So I told the whole world. One Saturday morning, I went on Facebook, but this is my last ever Facebook post, and here's why. And I put my story there. I told them about all the bad days. I told them about what I'd been through. And at the bottom I put, if you've got an issue, don't bother telling me, just unfriend me and you'll never hear from me again. That weekend I had more than 100 friend requests on my new profile from people that I'd previously known, including all the guys I was in the Air Force with. And since then I've actually been to an RAF reunion, which was brilliant. Spent the whole weekend with the wives, meeting up with guys occasionally. Guys were in walkabout watching rugby, we were drinking Prosecco and cocktails somewhere else. We turned up before the end of the rugby so the three of us could sit there and perv over the rugby players. But it was nice, because for one thing the girls all totally accepted me into their gang, and for another thing the boys just treated me like one of the girls. But the thing is, I still have my demons. I do still have my demons. Things are so much better for me, but I still fight against some things. And sometimes I do still feel suicidal. But I've developed ways of dealing with it now. In the past, when I was Steve and I felt suicidal because I hated myself so much, I'd want it to take me. It's like, go on, take me off anywhere dark you want to. Go on, destroy me. But now, when I start getting these feelings, I get angry with it. I go, you had your chance when I was Steve. That's not what Sophie's about. Sophie is about actually living her life and having fun and loving herself. And the other thing I started doing is I started asking for help. And I put a status on my Facebook a while ago that said, this will make some of you feel uncomfortable, but I will make you a promise. I will not commit suicide, but in return, you guys might occasionally have to listen to me say that I'm thinking about it. And when I do, it's not a cry for attention, it's a cry for help. A few days later, I actually did feel quite down. And I was so down that the only thing I could manage to do was type the words help me into Facebook. And I got all this love back. And that brought me back into a safe place where I could look after myself rather than let the dark feelings take me. The other tactic that I've got for beating those dark feelings is I'm taking them from the dark areas of my mind where they're strong and bringing them out into the light, talking about them, talking to my friends, talking to you guys about it. Because that diminishes their strength. Out here, I'm stronger than them. There are other issues. I do still have issues about being transgender. I do still have slight post-traumatic stress. But the thing is, all of these things that used to gang up on me, they're like a gang of bullies. And I've taken the biggest one out of the gang and put it over there. He's now in my gang. So my gang's slightly bigger than their gang now. So quite frankly, they can all jog on. So I told my family, and the great thing is that when I told my family, they were really supportive. And my kids especially, my 11-year-old daughter, who I was terrified of her reaction, actually went on Facebook and put on one of my posts, "You're my hero. Steve was great, but Sophie's better." So what I'd say is, if there's changes in your life that you're scared of, the pain, the fear of looking at them is so much greater than the pain of going through them. And sometimes when you need help, just ask for it. So thank you.